News. I say that triumphantly because we are healthy this time. You know, the Final Fantasy triumph theme whenever you finish a battle. That's how I'm feeling right now. I'm healthy. We're both healthy, healthier than we have been the last couple of weeks, and we're ready to talk about some news. Asab, you were about to say something?
Well, I'm not quite there yet, but yeah, so it's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
Well, you sound much better than you did last week, man.
Yeah, last week was pretty terrible.
Yeah, now you just got to deal with that cough that lasts for the next 6 months. Yeah, that just will never...
don't joke about it. I have been there and I have done that. That is
I have too. Yeah, it sucks. Hopefully it doesn't though, and like he's gonna be sucking on the halls just to hopefully make that thing go away faster. But anyways, you're not here to hear us talk about our health issues, and if you are, I would seriously suggest seeking out some professional help. We're here to talk about games. First off, God of War. People are nuts about this game, Syb. Specifically the sequel that's supposedly coming out at the end of this year, that being God of War Ragnarok. There was, from what I understand, rumors. I don't know where these rumors were coming from, but there was supposedly supposed to be some sort of reveal of something regarding God of War Ragnarok, like maybe a changed release date or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was supposed to happen on June the 30th. However, that day came and passed, and nobody really knew why. And because people are going absolutely gaga about this game, maybe because it's like, well, everything else has been delayed to 2023, and I really need a game to look forward to for the rest of the year. You know, even though we're living in an era where there's hundreds of games available at our fingertips, they only want to play this one. So people, because they were upset, they decided to tweet at the developers of this game, and they were tweeting at them some really explicit stuff. And I'm not just talking about text, but I'm also talking about images. One particular developer is a woman. She's a cinematics producer, and she received images of... How do I say this for a family-friendly show? She received images of private parts from...
Yeah, that's always, such a brilliant way to go. This is heavily exaggeratory because obviously it's not. I don't
Men think that doing that for women will have the same effect as women doing that for men. And that's sort of the lie that men have believed for hundreds of thousands of years, and yet they just never get it. But anyways, yeah, look, if that actually worked, don't you think I would have sent like pictures of myself to Gabe Newell just so I can get Half-Life 3 by now? And Syb would have done it too? Don't even think like you would absolutely if it worked, but it doesn't work.
So I wanted to do a joke about processors and hard drives, but yeah. I'm not at 100%, so my chance of messing that up is probably quite high. Mm-hmm. It's so sad and funny in that like sad way where the only thing you can really do is kind of laugh uneasy about it because it's so creepy. But the stupidity of people like going after devs because of something that is innocuous as hey, we've got something planned for someday, and then it kind of comes and goes. It's not like they pulled a Cyberpunk, right? It's not like you released a game that had so many bugs that you couldn't even finish it as is. And again, it's like I get that people are passionate about the games, but like sometimes people just got to let this stuff go. And I think most everybody here listening to this is in agreement of that. But it's always weird when you see the worst that people have to offer, and it's always so unhealthy. And there's nothing that you can really do about it because it's like good Lord, why? And so yeah, it's concerning. I'm annoyed with this because this is one of those things that just it gives a lot of people a bad name, and it makes it so that developers are less interested in interacting with their fans.
Yeah,
makes them less interested worried about.
Sorry.
Yeah, because they're worried about stuff, right? Like and stuff like this, and again, why attack somebody like that? It's like Twitter hate. Like if you want to call somebody on Twitter an idiot, I do that all the time. And that's fine because, like, you're just like, it's like you're being stupid. You're being a suck up. Some of the worst that if you look at my Twitter profile last night, I called several people, a stooge of mega corporations. It's like, why? Because they are. They're padding up. They're coming out saying that they can do no wrong, and trust me, when these corporations do something that these people don't like, these people are the first to go and do those extreme things, like those really extreme, crazy things that, you know, is going to get you into the newspaper, not in a good way, and it's going to make everybody look like, you know, gamers are full on crazy people.
Are you talking about console fanboys, by the way?
Well, it's not. I don't want to throw it on the console fanboys, because it's a lot of PC players too right now. Lately, the majority of the people that I've been getting in tiffs with on Twitter in the last like couple of months have been like people from the Lost Ark community who look at Lost Ark, who look at the 3 years of content for Lost Ark that have been sitting on the wayside. And when Lost Ark first came out, the first initial release was pretty bad. It was really rough, and it didn't get better until they released the raids. Well, they still haven't released I don't think they've released any raids. I think they maybe just did one just like recently, but it's like, you need to release a lot more content a lot faster. Your player base went from 1.3 million players to under 200,000. And people said, well, that's just the bot ban. You mean that you mean to tell me that the game was never successful? It never had 800,000 players. It never had 500,000 players. It had 1.1 million bots? Come on. Grow up. You know, and I say that to people who are like, you know, I liked Lost Ark in the term of like them, you know, giving some competition to and bringing new life into like MMOs. And I don't think that the way that they've monetized is a good thing. I think it's a terrible thing. And it's certainly one of the things that has led me to just not log in for the last month.
Yeah.
But the other thing is just the content. It's so slow. It's coming out so slow that it didn't even feel worth it to log in to do dailies for 5 minutes. That it and so that kind of stuff, that kind of problem, when the developer does do things like that, and there are people who get like annoyed, but they don't know how to, like, you know, I said respectfully, you guys are lagging behind the content, and it's a dumb idea, because no other company has ever done that with their games. It's a really terrible idea to say, remember that first version of the game that was really bad? Yeah. Well, let's release that in a major market, and then just sit on that and force the players to suck that garbage down for the next 6 months to a year. There are characters that are released right now, and for all intents and purposes, these are very much like League of Legends characters. There are characters right now that have been released for 3 years that we're not going to see for the next 2 to 3 years at the current going rate. It's like, okay, great. Yeah, that's going to make your player base really healthy. And the people that rally to the defense of a mega corporation like Amazon saying, oh no, they're doing it fine. Grow up, you stupid people. Like, Amazon doesn't need your defense. Okay?
They have more money than God.
Oh, not really. But it's like one of these things where it's like, we could be seeing and we could be encouraging these companies to continue to push forward with the best positivity. Why do we get games like Diablo Immortal that you can spend $500,000 on? Why do we get games like that? And somebody did, by the way. It's disgusting. And why are these games getting shoved into our faces? Because we didn't draw a line anywhere. I've always said I'm okay with cosmetics, because if you have, like, if you're making a game that has lots of characters in it, and say you've got a game that's got like 20 characters in it, the cost effectiveness of doing like free costumes for a whole bunch of those characters are not really there. And in some games, it's not there at all. Like, it's not that the company doesn't want to spend, 4 months and 15 people to develop a whole lineup of brand new clothes for the next year for your characters. It's that it's feasibly not possible. Now, when you introduce pay for cosmetics, it's kind of a nice thing, but I would prefer all cosmetics to be unlocked in a thing. But if the option is no cosmetics versus like a handful of paid cosmetics, I mean, I'd say that my preference again is for them to be unlocked via challenges or to open up modding. That's what I think should happen. But these people who are okay with all of the bad mistakes that these big gigantic companies are making, that's the reason why we get Diablo Immortal. And it's disgusting. Stop being shills. Oh,
yeah,
Lord.
please. Yes.
And again, that's not for the people listening. Most of you people agree.
Are very smart.
So, yeah. And if you don't agree, please let me know in the comments.
Yes, so that way we know how to avoid you.
Sorry, I know that was a little bit of a segue.
Passive aggressive. I would do the same thing too. But anyways, I will give kudos to the people that who are calling this out, like Corey Barlog, the director of the new God of War. He's been on Twitter all over just trying to defend his company, and good for him. Like, this is the type of company, Sony Santa Monica, that has been doing.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't.
You muted yourself.
Sorry, no, I did mute myself. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have been talking. The Sony Santa Monica studio, they're one of the good studios, I would say, right now. God of War was a magnificent game, and it seems like we're going to be getting the next iteration of that, and we need to protect that. So let's move on to the next subject. Syb, I need to bring something over to the other room, and you were going to take the lead on this subject anyway, so just give me a second. I'll be right back. Like, go ahead. Like, you can. You can talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So, the Cyberpunk Q&A story, brought to you by a friend of the channel, actually, Upper Echelon, was contacted by somebody who worked for their QA company, and it's basically, to make a really long story short, because I don't want to drag this out like I did the last story. They had the accusation is that the QA company that was working for CDPR to make sure that Cyberpunk was ready was doing a bunch of like dirty dealings and wasn't actually helping and was causing a lot of like additional problems that slow down development time. This is partially true. It's not 100% true in the sense of like, oh yeah, no, that's the reason why the game sucked. No, it was one of many contributing factors.
Yeah.
That affected the game's development in a negative way. That's not surprising. That's not shocking news. It's
just official. We insinuated it, but now it's official.
One of the there was a QA guy from a company that was interacting with CDPR that had joined our Discord, and we actually had to ban him because it's one of the only 2 people I've ever banned on the server, because of problems and stuff. And so I mean, QA departments are it's really messed up because it's always in a bad position. Sometimes it's them getting screwed over. Sometimes it's them screwing somebody else over. Sometimes it's them not doing their job properly. Sometimes it's not them having the tools to do their job properly. Sometimes it's them not having the training or the equipment or the respect to do their job properly. And there's a lot of problems in the concept of QA in video gaming. There's a lot of problems with it right now. It's seen as an entry-level position, even though it's not. It's seen as a position that doesn't really affect anything, even though it's not. It's seen as a gigantic, like, thing that people can wave around like a cudgel. In some cases, not all cases, obviously, but in some cases, it's a problem there like that. So yeah, not surprised by the story at all. Not surprised by the accusations. I think they're a little blown over, but not by much. But also it's not as impactful as some people were thinking it was, and who were believing it was going to be. So in this story, again, it's one of these things where it's like, yeah, I believe it for the most part, as far as like a general contributing factor, not as a primary factor, like it's being alleged by some people. It's not a primary factor. It's just one of the many dozens of problems in the QA side of things in video gaming, and not shocked. Not shocked. But it is an interesting story. Because he's a friend of the channel, please check out Upper Echelon's video on the matter directly. Then as far as like, what do you think about it? If you want my opinion, is that it was a small contributing factor. It wasn't the major contributing factor. The biggest contributing factor was the fact that they kept resetting the goal and the overall like concept of the game. And they kept on repealing features, and they still shoved it out the door when they knew they needed months and months more work. And probably the biggest contributing factor is that it was supposed to work on the previous generation's first wave consoles, and that was a huge mistake. Either they needed to massively downgrade the game and work on a massively upgraded version for the next console generation, or they should have just focused on the latter end of the previous generation and on the new generation. If they had done that, I think the game would have worked a lot better, because frankly speaking, trying to make a game work on 10-year-old tech hardware is stupid. And again, it's the fact that, yeah, the specs are 10 years old, but it's also some people's consoles were 10 years old, or nearly 10 years old, and have been in use on and off for like 8 hours a day for the last decade. How do you think that's going to work? Like that's that. And again, that's their fault. That's not the consumer's fault. That's their fault. They didn't foresee this as a mega serious problem. They didn't foresee this as a massive issue that needed to be corrected from the development side 3 years earlier. So yeah, again, not the customer's fault. This was their fault. Like a lot of things, the leadership there, they're trying to move too fast. They're really trying to move too fast, and that hurt them. It's not saying that they couldn't put out this game. It's that I think they could have put out the previous version of the game, or the previous version of the game, or the previous version of the game. I don't think that they needed to try and rebuild that wheel 3 times. Like, you know what would have worked? Build the first one, and then
keep that
go
as
into making the
vision.
second one.
Yeah.
And then go in and make the third one. It's like that like they honestly could have put out 2 different Cyberpunk games in the time that they took to make the one. It's pathetic. Like, come on, guys. It's like I understand you want to have the topmost upper, pinnacle work there is. But that's not how that works. It's really not how that works. So, yeah, that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, what happened, it just seemed like they were starting with a 1,000-piece puzzle, and then it quickly became a 10,000-piece puzzle, and they got like 2/3 of the way there, but didn't have enough time to complete it. Yeah, all right. So thank you for taking the lead on that, and I'm going to have to ask you to take the lead on this one, because I've never watched this TV show called The Boys. Speaking of Amazon. Although I can speak to one half of it, that being my Lord and Savior, Hideo Kojima. And, when I say that, I know there are some people out there that roll their eyes because they like to hate on Kojima just because everybody worships him. Look, I worship at the altar of Hideo Kojima, but even I am capable of recognizing that the guy's made mistakes. He made a lot of mistakes in Metal Gear Solid 4. Even though I really enjoyed Death Stranding, there are things about that game that I hate. But I still love the man, and I think that he's the closest thing to a true auteur in the, a very popular auteur in the gaming medium. I mean, you have auteurs like Yoko Taro, but unfortunately his games don't do as well, even though they should, because he's a genius. Anyways, Hideo Kojima, intelligent guy. I imagine he has a lot of different ideas and concepts for games that he hasn't made yet. And one of them he actually revealed through Twitter is that he had this idea in mind for a superhero deconstruction of sorts along the lines of the aforementioned TV show The Boys. I can't speak to this aside from the fact that, hey, if Hideo Kojima were going to do a postmodern deconstruction of the superhero genre, like he sort of did with the stealth genre and video games in general with Metal Gear Solid 2, I would be all for it. I mean, if you could bring something like truly original to the comic book genre and do something that kind of turns a mirror on it, kind of like what Watchmen did, or apparently what The Boys did, I'd be all for it. Syb, you've seen The Boys. You can maybe speak more accurately.
I've watched season 1 and season 2. Season 2 was what do I call season 2? A mess. Okay. It wasn't as good as it could have been because it was more interested in being political, and I don't think they needed to do that. I think they did it, they did it pretty well, right? Like, I call it a mess. Other people would say, man, it's fine. And I'm not arguing that point. The perception of what you consider too much of a thing is obviously going to be, that's in the eye of the beholder, and there's nothing that really needs to change with that. There's nothing that really needs to like break that, because again, it's your perception of it. So I didn't like the second season nearly as much as I liked the first season. I'm told that the third season, they've kind of gone back a little bit more to basics, and they've really tried to rein in some of the stuff that they were doing that was causing a little bit of a problem, and figure out what they could do to make it better. That's what I've heard. I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably gonna get around to watching it at some point here. But Kojima wants to work within the concepts of this as a thing. I think that's brilliant. I don't know how it would quite work.
Yeah.
Because it depends. So the initial concept is imagine fighting Superman, which I don't know why anybody thinks, why do any of the villains in the Superman universe, aside from the ones that are obviously as strong as he is,
why do they need to exist?
Why do they fight? Why do they exist? Why do they fight? It's if you're a small time criminal and you live in a city with a guy who's basically a god who can fly around and pick you up and in a few seconds throw you over an entire building and then catch you on your way down, throw you into a police squad car, and then you just go to jail because you were caught by Superman. At what point are you you know what? I think I might mug that person tonight. Right? Either the desperation is so bad that you're willing to incur the wrath of a literal god on the planet, or you just are too stupid to realize that there's a literal god on the planet. At some point, the concept of these small arms, criminals and stuff like that, is just a little on the ridiculous side. And but this is an interesting concept for this supposed game, because I think what Kojima is referencing the idea of is playing a game, not it's not like some of these RPGs where you go out and you gain more power and you gain more power and you gain more power, and then you're as strong as the boss is, or you're fighting a boss that's still very powerful, but you're powerful and you can dodge most of the attacks, and boom, you get yourself a great game there. What I think he's wanting to create is a game where you're playing just a regular guy with other regular guys, and you're trying to fight essentially Superman.
Huh.
How do you do that? How do you do that? That's
you
the
become
concept.
Batman. In the Dark Knight Returns.
Except you don't have $1 billion to throw away in weapons testing. You have your street smarts, some contacts on the street, and you're trying to overthrow a regime of super powerful, air quote, heroes who have basically become this combination between an oligarch and a politician and a warlord, who again are basically borderline gods. It's like, what do you do in that scenario? What is your end goal? What is your concept? How do you fight? That kind of stuff. I really like this idea. I really do. I really think it's a good idea. I'm really excited to see how he would pull it off. And how that would work, and what the end goal would be.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of speculation we can do, but we're not going to speculate too much. We're not going to speculate too much, but I'm going to say that I think it's a great idea, and I think it's probably better than the Death Stranding idea that he had. Yeah. I honestly think that if he had worked on something more like that, I think that'd be a far better. I got in a lot of hot water with some of our fans, and again, I would, I apologize to anybody who took it wrong when I came out and I said that Death Stranding is not the game that they're expected to play, because other games are more actiony, and this is a lot more heady, and some people took that to be insulting that they wouldn't enjoy a heady game, but I don't think people quite understood what I was saying. Is like, no, this isn't you. This is going to be a completely different game than what you're expecting to play. This isn't going to be God of War. This isn't going to be Metal Gear Solid. This is going to be a lot of like story and conceptual stuff that doesn't like. It's not gameplay. It's story and it's an experience. It's an experience, but it's not a like pulling off cool moves in a simulator. It's a walking simulator for a lot of it. It's a very heady game for a lot of it. And again, I wasn't trying to insult our fans. I was just pointing out that it's not a game that people are expecting to play. So I think that if he makes this, I think this is a much better idea, much better concept, and he can still play with a lot of those same kind of things they were thinking about in Death Stranding. So yeah, I think he's a great pick to make this work, and I hope that it works out well.
Yeah, but unfortunately something tells me that he's actually working on that other rumored game that's like a horror game. I don't know if the quote-unquote overdose, that's supposedly the title of his new game, overdose rumors are true, but between the two, I definitely would love to see sort of what I have in my mind and what you have in your mind, and it would be definitely a much more marketable and palatable game than Death Stranding was. Okay, moving on to the next one. Overwatch 2 beta. I got into it, Syb. I can talk about it briefly. Like, there's not really that much to say on it, but the main thing we're going to be talking about with this story is not the beta itself, but apparently, like, I didn't read the article that you sent me, but it had something to do with a bench. What?
Yeah, right. So somebody got upset because in Overwatch 2, there's a bench that's designed so that you can't lay down on it and sleep. And it's called hostile architecture. Hostile architecture is when there's like, there's an area that you'd be like, oh, I'd love to just sit down and get some shade in that like tree spot. But then when you go up there, you find what is essentially just very fancy barbed wire, making it impossible for you to be able to sit down. And when you're like, where can I sit down? Somebody's like, oh, well, sir, if you want to go sit down, the restaurant over there has a $50 cover charge, and it will allow you to sit there for at least 2 hours. Return of the Voices. Yeah, it's a nasty thing to see in a city. It has a mean connotation, and it's also kind of the argument around it is just weird, and I don't really know what to think of it. Like, I legitimately have no idea what to think of this thing. I just pointed it out because it was a funny and very odd story to run into. Like, it's genuinely like, what? But yeah, so they Blizzard was like, yes, we're going to remove it because our version of this city in the future, where you're fighting people nonstop because of, terrible things going on. Everybody's living a perfectly happy life and nobody's being left out in the cold, apparently. I'm really confused. Honestly, I am. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at this like what you're saying about barbed wire that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but yeah, it looks like
So hostile architecture, it basically does like prevents you from laying down or sitting down on particular things.
yeah. So okay, let me explain because I have the article up in front because like the way like I didn't read it, now I'm reading it. Now I know what you're talking about. So guys, imagine like you're in a big city. There's a bench that you want to sit on. Maybe during the night, a homeless person would use that bench as a place to sleep on. Well, what people do to sort of deter homeless people from sleeping on that bench is they use these little things to sort of divide up where you're supposed to sit on the bench. And by having those things there, it would obviously make it very uncomfortable for somebody to want to sleep on that bench, thus deterring the homeless person from sleeping there. So by including it in the game, it's sort of some overly sensitive person, I imagine, took that and said, well, this is, Blizzard not caring for homeless people, which, I wouldn't be surprised. It's Blizzard. But, I mean, of all the things that you can be outraged about when it comes to Blizzard and the way they treat other people, I think this is definitely at the bottom of the list, right? Did I have that right?
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's very weird. It's very weird. It's very weird. I don't know what to think of it. It's very weird.
These are the same types of people that will tweet at, the developers for God of War at the fact that they're not announcing when the release date is, and just people that don't have way too much time on their hands and find outrage in the most trivial crap. What you could, like, even though, in the grand scheme of things, video games aren't that important, but one thing that you can do that's a lot better than taking issue with the way that the benches are designed in the game is taking issue with the way that the game is designed in general. So, like I just said, I have been playing the Overwatch 2 beta, and let's just say this, it was a very wise decision, probably the wisest decision that Blizzard has made in a long time, to make it free to play. This game isn't Overwatch 2. It is, like Video Game Donkey said, in that it is Overwatch 1.1. There's very little that's done in regards to changing the maps. Like he said, it really is just like lighting changes and maybe one or two bloom effects. And then one or two other things that I think are welcome additions, but still, it's not enough to qualify the number 2 in the name. So I'm a Soldier 76 main. I also play Pharah when I just can't seem to make the match go in the direction that I want it to. Sometimes I play as Baptiste. All of the way that their weapons function, it does seem to have greater weight, and the sound effects do seem a little bit more updated. I don't really know how to explain it, but it is a welcome addition. The 5v5 compared to the 6v6, it does take some getting used to. It's hard to say whether or not it's a better thing to have, because I think one of the reasons why they added in the 5v5 instead of the 6v6 is to try and decrease load times. Well, I can tell you one thing, participating in the beta, I tried to go into a role match, and it still took me like 10 minutes to get into the goddamn thing compared to quick play. But then, it's like you can go up against a team that has 4 tanks and 1 DPS and 1 healer, and then it's like if they're good, you're kind of screwed, right? But yeah, in regards to that though, I can't really say it's overly positive or overly negative. It just seems to be what it is. But and then there are a couple of other things that I actually am quite appreciative of. Roadhog, he no longer pisses me off. He's no longer OP. When he grabs a hold of you, pulls you in, and shoots you, you actually do have a legitimate chance to escape. So whenever he shows up, I'm like, oh my god, here we go again. That no longer happens with him. But I will say that with the new tank character that they added, Junker Queen, I think her name is, way overpowered. She really needs to be debuffed by the time the game comes out in October. Everybody's playing her, and she takes way too long to kill.
Well, that's the way that you sell the new character, right? So
yeah, get everybody to play her and then just depower her later, and then I guess, I don't know.
I mean, League of Legends, they basically invented that.
Right. But yeah, as for all the other characters, it's hard to say. I'm getting sort of varying reactions from people. My girlfriend, she really seems to appreciate the changes that are made in Overwatch 2, but my girlfriend's
Mhm.
sister, who also plays it, she's not really a big fan of it. And I can see where they're both coming from. You know, as somebody, like I said, I am a Soldier 76 main. I do find that Soldier 76 is more powerful in Overwatch 1, but after playing the beta for a couple hours, I am getting used to it and the way that he functions. He's a little bit more depowered, but he can still be quite useful. I'm still getting high DPS with him in the game. But aside from that, there's not really a whole lot else added to the game. Although I will say, there are a couple of really cool new maps. I think one is in Rio, and the other one is in my hometown of Toronto, Canada. It's Queen Street. Both are really, really cool, really colorful, and welcome additions. But yeah, aside from that, not a whole lot else to look forward to. But you know, if it's any consolation, you're not gonna have to spend $70 or $80 on it, and there's no longer any loot boxes. It's optional battle passes, and I don't plan on getting any of those, so I can just enjoy Overwatch for free. So all in all, I guess it's a little bit positive, certainly more positive than anything that's going on with Diablo Immortal. But yeah, that's sort of what's been going on with Overwatch 2. Before we move on to the last couple stories, Saib, did you have anything you wanted to say to that?
Um, I hope that they bring out the PvE stuff soon.
True.
And I know an unreasonable wish that I will never ever get is that I hope they add third person to the game. Which again, even if it was just for PvE, I never expect that they're going to ever do that. But yeah. So.
Yeah, I think it would just, unfortunately, unless you made it like so.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I'm never getting that wish. So yeah.
There are third person options. It's just not for the main game, and I think that's just because it would give people too much of a competitive advantage. But anyways, couple more stories that we got. Sucker Punch, one of my favorite studios making games right now, right up there with Insomniac and From Software, Sony Santa Monica. They recently made Ghost of Tsushima, which was my game of the year for 2020. Absolutely wonderful game. If you haven't played it, what the hell are you doing with your life? And it seems like they're gearing up for Ghost of Tsushima 2, or I don't know, maybe it'll be a different part of Japan that they go to. Maybe it'll be the same character from, what is his name? Jin? I can't remember. But yeah, I'm excited for it. But, you know, people who are longtime fans of Sucker Punch, they might be wondering, well, are they making any plans to return to some of their previous franchises like Sly Cooper and Infamous? There have been rumors going around. I think there were people saying that they were going to announce an update of a long-time held Sony PlayStation IP at like one of the shows that was happening at the Faux E3 that we had this year. And people were expecting it to be Infamous, but that didn't happen. Well, I got some unfortunate news for people who are fans of both of those properties. Sucker Punch confirmed via Twitter that there are no games being made in either of those franchises with either of those IPs by either them or any other studio. And I think I kind of get why. It's just because making games nowadays, it's so much more of a financial risk than it used to be. It's sort of an all or nothing with the way that you go about these. And you can only go and make games that sort of have a reliable return on investment. Sly Cooper, from what I understand, even though it is a beloved franchise, it didn't really make the most money back in the day. And Infamous, I don't know though. Like from what I understand, like Infamous got 3-4 games, and they're all fantastic. I don't know why they couldn't do another one, but maybe I don't know. Maybe they could. It's just they're kind of focused on Ghost of Tsushima 2, and then they'll come back to it later. But yeah, it's too bad. Maybe they're just holding on to it because they do want to return to it again someday. Because if they didn't, I would hope that they would outsource the development and just gain royalties on it. But yeah, I mean, if we are getting Ghost of Tsushima 2, it should numb the pain, but I know there are going to be some people that are pissed. Saib, how do you react to this news? Were you a fan of the Infamous games or Sly Cooper?
Not really. It was one of those games that I just never got a chance to like get into due to life stuff at the time. Um, I thought they had a good concept, and I always appreciate and I always love and I always would like to support um, good concept games. Like seriously,
Mm-hmm.
I I think good concept games are so important. Um, yeah, they're really just important to have. So yeah, I think like obviously, I think there's more that can be done with these games, and I don't think the games are as expensive to make as some people think they are. There are, and all you have to do for that is just check out the amazingly high quality of indie games out there. And I think a lot of these studios have to take a step back and they have to look at what are they doing? What are they paying people for? What's the work that's actually getting done in games? Because I can assure you that at some tech companies, a person and this may have been a recently heavily tweeted thing and talked about story, that there are some people who show up to work, hang around, essentially do no actual productive work. It's all like, hanging out and um, chilling with other coworkers and doing about an hour and a half of actual work in a day, and then having basically the entirety of your day being just comped to you. Like, so all your food, all your drinks, all your whatever, and that's just what some people get to do
Blizzard.
in the tech industry. And again, this was a kind of a big story on Twitter and YouTube in the past few days. Yeah, if you look at indie companies that are pumping out games, you'll see that there's some amazing talent out there that is really trying to push things in a new direction. And I think that there's a lot of games that people are like, oh no, we have to have, we have to have, this, and the other thing. It's like, well, actually turns out you don't need any of those things. So yeah, it's it's one of those things that I think in the future we'll kind of see a turning point in which some companies bailed on the concept of being able to like actually make good games because, well, it was just too difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so yeah, I think that's kind of what we'll need to look at as far as like in the future and how that reacts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there will eventually be a reset where things are made a little.
And I think this showcases that reset it's coming. It may not necessarily be around the corner, but it is most certainly coming, and that eventually, sooner or later, we're going to get that hard reset to a lot of studios.
Just a matter of when. All right, and then finally, we know there's a Fallout TV show coming. We haven't really heard.
Yeah.
We haven't really heard much news about it aside from a couple of actors being hired. I think Walter Goggins is one of them, who's a good actor, but it's not necessarily the actor that makes a good story. But anyways, I didn't watch what is that? Oh, Juicehead. I thought it was Bellular for a second. I didn't see the video you sent me. What's going on with it?
So, well, it's just an update on what's going on. They have recruited a bunch of actors. We know a bunch of the actors that are going to be in the show now. No super headliners, but a lot of good headliners. We've got filming started up, and we have right here. We have locations. So they're going to be in the desert. They're going to be in the West. And they're also filming in New York City, which is a huge sign that they're serious about this. You don't film in New York City unless you have to. Filming in New York City is one of the most expensive filming locations in the world.
Yeah.
But they are filming in New York City. What exactly they're filming in New York City, I'm not sure. I do know that there is a couple of buildings that are still standing in New York that with a little bit of touch up, they can get that early 1930s, 40s aesthetic, just or 1940s ish aesthetic, just absolutely nailed down. There's a couple of buildings that have this. There's actually some of the stuff. So there's this mysterious sculptures that are found throughout the Fallout universe. Those statues were inspired by a building in New York, and the architecture and the look and style of the building. Some of their actual like architectural styling for certain buildings within the Fallout universe was actually again deprived from the same building. So this is like, if they're filming there, which I'm not sure is the case. We know that there was somebody came out and said, they've been building sets for the Fallout universe, for the Fallout TV show, and it looks great in comparison to other stuff. They're big fans of the games, and they are absolutely loving the sets. And somebody else was like, aren't you breaking an NDA? He goes, well, actually, there's no NDA on this particular project as like construction workers. So the construction workers building the sets don't actually have an NDA. And I can say that is sort of normal. They have a general rule against taking photos, but you can still talk about the project. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just due to the fact that, certain construction unions, they don't want their guys hassled that much. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. It means that we're going to get this sucker sometime around next year. I really hope that it's good. I really, really hope that it's good, because I love the Fallout universe, and I really wish that it would improve. I don't hope that it burns down for the sake of, being able to go at one or two people involved in the project. There's hundreds and hundreds of people involved in the Fallout universe as far as writing and creating. More of the original people are now having a say from the original games. The Fallout 1 and 2 are having a say in some stuff, and there is talk now, for sure. There was talk I was hoping for originally, but that obviously fell through, that they would switch kind of their focus to an actual a renewal of some of the previous games, or giving some more of the games to Obsidian. And we're getting closer to that every day. We really are. There's more and more conversations going on. Microsoft wants, especially if this show is successful, they want a new Fallout universe game coming out in the next 3 years, not in the next 10.
Yeah, just get some assets to Obsidian, let them go ham.
Yeah, and they want more people working on more projects in the Fallout universe instead of, again, just the one studio. And again, there's a whole bunch of out of chronological order Fallout games, right? There's Fallout New Vegas, there's Fallout Tactics, there's Fallout Van Buren. There's a couple other ones that were being made, that were some of them are made, some of them are great. Excuse me. And I think we're getting closer and closer to seeing that. So I can't wait, and I think we're going to have some good stuff here.
Yeah, I can't wait either. I've recently been trying to indulge myself in the Fallout universe lately, starting with Fallout New Vegas. I never really played the games just because I was never able to get into them like I was with the Elder Scrolls games, the other major RPG franchise by Bethesda. Yeah. But yeah, man, if I can get me some like Joshua Graham, Ulysses level type writing, those types of characters in a TV show, the Fallout TV show could be something really special. It can be a game changer like Arcane, but it really just comes down to whether or not they treat this franchise with respect and live up to the legacy set by those types of characters. So that's all the stories that we have for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, make sure you hit that like button, because when you do that, it tells the YouTube algorithm that not only this video is worth watching, but all the other videos on this particular channel. So please do it. It's free and easy to do. I want to thank Syb, as always, for doing the show with me, offering his lovely insight, especially on the subjects that I'm not really able to speak as much to. Syb, do you want to tell people about the main channel quickly before we tune out?
Yeah, join us on the main channel, and of course on our Discord. The main channel is the Triple S League. on YouTube. We're also on a couple other places. So if you're on a new social media site, give a look for us. See if we're there. There's a good chance that we're on a fair number of them, and we want to try and increase that. We don't always get the ability to like directly respond, but if you add us or if you quote us or whatever, I will try and get around to responding to that as quick as I can.
Cool. And you guys can just find me at all the various social media websites, just at Max Derrat. I'll put links to that stuff and Cyb stuff in the description box below. Thanks, guys, and until next time, I want to remind you, as always and as per usual, don't tweet pictures of your private parts at game developers.
Bad idea.